Hello, it's attorney Larissa Davis with the Monday Night Movie Night, but no, it is not a Monday, it is a Friday night. So if you are somebody who regularly watches on my channel, first I want to say thank you. And I was unable to upload a video on Monday of this week because I had some family visiting from out of town. My dad was here visiting, and so I didn't get to fully finish watching this movie or get the video uploaded to talk about it. So if you're here, welcome. If you're new to my channel, I am a United States immigration attorney, and I like to share immigrant stories through film that I watch and discuss some of the things that go on in these films and hopefully get some feedback or interaction or comments or questions or something on this channel. I've also been gaining subscribers pretty consistently over the last few weeks, so I want to thank my subscribers for being here on my channel. Okay, so tonight's movie is called Under the Same Moon, and I love this movie. It is a fun movie to watch. It's a sweet movie. It's sweet without being corny, I think. It's not too cheesy. It's realistic. And the way that the characters interact with each other and talk to one another, I think, is fairly authentic in their conversation. And the main character that this movie focuses on is a child. And that's not always easy, especially in movie making. And so I just want to say, if you have not watched it, you should go and watch it. It is on, I think right now, HBO Max and maybe some other channels. It's really sweet. It's got some emotional parts, it's got humor, and it's got some seriousness to it, and it really puts a face on U.S. immigration, illegal immigrants, really. And so if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Okay, so first I want to talk a little bit about the characters because I think they had some really great characters in this movie. I also want to talk about some of the critics and comments online on the RottenTomatoes.com website for this movie, because there are some comments on there that really resonate, and some of them are just not on point with this, in my opinion. Watching this movie, if you're an immigrant or a family member of an immigrant and you've seen this movie, please leave your comments, share your thoughts on what you thought of it watching it, and let's get into it. Okay, so the main character, Carlitos, is played by a Mexican actor, and this kid is playing a character who's supposed to be 9 years old, but I looked him up. He's actually only he's older. He's 12 or 13 at the time the movie was released in 2007, and it's about how this child is still in Mexico living with his grandmother, and his father, who he's never met, has gone off and lives in Tucson, Arizona. His mother lives in Los Angeles, and he keeps hearing about this time that someday, in the future, he will rejoin her. He'll take a trip to see her, and this date just never seems to come, and he's getting anxious, and he misses his mother because she's been gone for 4 years in the United States, and they talk every Sunday, and she describes the location where she's calling him from in the United States, in Los Angeles, and that is basically the relationship he has with his mother for 4 years. And when she left, when he was about 5 in the story, he believed that he would be rejoining her soon, and so what happens is he decides to go and find her, because the grandmother, his mother's mom, his mother is Rosario, and she's working cleaning homes in Los Angeles. And when the grandmother passes away, he wants to go find his mother. He wants to go be with her. And he decides if he can get there before Sunday, which is when they have their weekly phone calls, and she goes to the payphone to talk to him at home in Mexico, then nothing will go wrong, that he can find her, and that will be sufficient enough time to get to her. And so he gives himself this week to go find her. In this story, the child, who, by the way, is an excellent actor for somebody, even if he was 12 or 13 at the time and not actually 9 years old, he is such a great actor and he's so cute. What an adorable little boy. I mean, his facial expressions and just everything about his whole just demeanor throughout the movie was, I thought, really, really authentic, and is so sweet. He's just the cutest little kid. He's not a little kid anymore, but in the movie, he's just really great at expressing emotions through his facial expressions and the way he talks and acts. And sometimes in movies and in TV shows, we see children acting who say things because of the dialogue written by the writers on the movie or show that just isn't really realistic. If you have children or you're around children, you know how they talk, you know how they interact. And so I hate it when I watch shows or movies where kids just don't sound like kids. In this, I thought he seemed like real, like this was really this kid who's out on the road trying to find his mom, and he's lived this life with his grandmother, and in an area where I think are not too far from the U.S.-Mexico border, because there's a lady that he works with who helps people to illegally cross the U.S.-Mexico border. And so I can appreciate some well-written dialogue that shows some, real conversation going on between people. And not just with him, but others too. There are some cuss words. There are some rough topics. Not any real violence going on throughout the movie, but it's definitely got an authentic feel to it, I thought, in terms of how people are interacting with one another and speaking, and the situations that they find themselves in. Let me know if you agree or disagree with me on that. Okay, so his situation in Mexico is that he has some other family members. I think it's an aunt and uncle, or I think it was an uncle and his girlfriend or wife. I couldn't really understand thoroughly what this relationship was, but they wanted to maybe take him after the grandmother died and care for him, or there seemed to be some sort of sinister intentions there, maybe not sincere care for his well-being and his best interest. But anyways, the kid isn't gonna do this. He knows he doesn't want to go with those extended family members, and he wants to be reunited with his mother. He loves his mother. His mother calls for him, and she's in the United States trying to earn enough money to bring him over and get herself in a situation with the United States where everything is done legally. She has a lawyer, and there's a part in the movie where she's talking with her friend, and she's talking about how much money it costs for a lawyer. She was at a point where I think she still needed $4,000. She had saved up, I think, $2,000. I want to say this to anyone who needs to hire a lawyer for immigration services. Different lawyers or law firms have different policies for how they handle their client cases. One law firm might handle cases in a way that they allow for payment plans, which I do at my law firm. Other law firms might not offer that. So in this instance, she was saying to her friend how she needed to make so much more money mending dresses and working in order to pay for this immigration lawyer. So I bring that up just to say, shop around. Just like anything else, if you're looking for a service, you're looking for a good, you want to find a good deal, but you also want to find quality. And so while she was saving up, maybe she could have got assistance from a legal aid organization, or maybe she could have got, a lawyer who would have put her on a payment plan or something, so she could have at least started some paperwork. But anyways, I digress. This is a movie. I'm just saying that for real life situations. But she's really trying hard to work to earn enough money to bring her son over and take care of her own legal status and provide what she believes would be a better life in California, in Los Angeles. The father is somewhere in Tucson, Arizona. We don't know where he is. Okay, so what else do I want to bring up? Okay, so legal assistance. There's legal aid available to people who don't make enough money to hire a lawyer in the United States that you can look up, or you can get on a payment plan if you get an attorney to that you hire for an immigration case. Okay, the other thing really here is separation. So she's in the United States for 4 years without her son, which means if he was 9 at the time, she would have left when he was about 5 years old. I served 5 years active duty in the Marine Corps. I did deploy. I was in boot camp and training for a number of months. It is extremely, extremely difficult to be away from a child when you are a parent. And so I can appreciate the fact that, there are people who are working very hard to make a life, to make a living, because they love their children, because they want to provide for them, because they want to have this life that they envision in the United States that they believe would be in the best interest of their child. But on the other hand, time goes by for everyone. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Time is not on our side. And so you lose that time that you would have with family, with children. And so it was very emotional in the movie to see how much this impacted the mother, but especially the son. This kid is a fantastic actor, and I just felt so emotional watching him when he got in those moments where he's losing hope, when he's feeling like he's never going to see his mother again, and he's trying so hard. Oh my gosh, this kid's heart and his effort and his just go-get-itness. I just loved this whole story so much. Of course, it's extremely dangerous the way that he came over, and that gets to my next point. Crossing the US-Mexico border illegally. I recently did a video on this. I'm also on Instagram and TikTok, and the reason I did is because we are in 2022, and this has been a year with some of the highest migrant deaths. And in this movie, the kid gets hooked up with these people who think they're helping out with getting people across, specifically children, and they think they can just drive him over by putting him into space under some seats in a van. And if you've watched the movie, you know what I'm talking about. If you're going to watch the movie, you'll see what happens there. But heat exhaustion and dehydration are extremely serious things that occur in the desert. I grew up in the desert. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona. It is no joke to not be hydrated in a desert. This can be very deadly, and it's cost a lot of migrants their lives trying to cross the US-Mexico border. And so, of course, in the movie, the child, fortunately, is able to cross through this way and get out and be okay. But it, again, extremely dangerous, and it's illegal. So don't do it. But there are other legal methods. And in this instance, it reminded me of this book that I've just picked up recently that I bought from a store called Solito, which is based on a true story. It's a memoir of a young man, well, he was a child at the time, who came to the United States from El Salvador. And he puts in the beginning of the book this quote that I want to read to you because it's something that pertains to children and migration and separation from parents, which this movie really is about, the separation between this mother and her son. And so I just want to read this to you from the book Solito by Javier Zamora. You can pick it up, you can buy it online. It recently came out and is published and being distributed, I'm sure, in bookstores and places across the country. He quotes Leslie Abrego from Sacrificing Families, where she says, both boys and girls, for example, made references to the time lost and particularly to the uniqueness of a mother's love. More than one also described feeling as if they had a hole in their heart due to their mother's absence. In this way, they were always enveloped by a sense of longing. In this story, we follow this child trying to reunite with his mother, a mother who didn't leave him or abandon him, but loves him very much. Or let me step back. She left him, but she didn't intend to abandon him, and she certainly wanted to be with him, but she did it for reasons that she thought would benefit him, and he is seeking to reunite with her through a different way, an illegal way, and she is trying to do it through a legal way that takes much longer and many years, unfortunately. That's birthdays missed, that's a lot of firsts that you miss out on, and I know that from having been deployed in the U.S. Marine Corps, how difficult it can be to miss out on milestones with your children. And so for her in this situation, she is doing what she thinks is best. So we move along in the story, and at this point I kind of want to mention, or I do want to mention some of these comments online about the movie where somebody says that it tiptoes, well, I'll go through a couple of reviews. One says it tiptoes the line between tragedy and hope and never loses its balance in its account of life and luck in the US-Mexican borderlands. There's definitely some luck in this because there are quite a few instances of trouble with the boy as he's traveling and he's getting into these different situations, and luckily he lives, luckily he gets a job, luckily he gets out of the place where the immigration officers show up. I also want to say about the immigration officers, I thought it was interesting that the worker who saw the immigration officers show up at the workplace started yelling and screaming to everyone. He could have just walked around and maybe kept it a little more quiet. I'm not advocating for illegal entry into the United States, but I just thought it was interesting that the officers were at the front of this workplace where they were picking the tomatoes, and he just starts shouting about the immigration officers and going crazy, and then he just brings more attention to himself and the other workers. But anyways, it's a movie, it's dramatic effect. So the boy luckily is safe, and he's also not affected by some of the things that others are affected by. For instance, those who were arrested by the immigration officers, or the man who got, it looked like, I think it's pesticide chemicals that was on the man's hand, who was yelling and shouting and had injuries to his eyes. I believe that was pesticide chemicals that he'd got in his eyes. If you know, I didn't look it up, but if you know what I'm talking about, maybe comment, share information about that, because that's what I think was going on there. They didn't even give these workers gloves to pick the tomatoes. Okay, so he gets hooked up with this guy, Paco, who doesn't want to have anything to do with him. The actor is really fantastic. He's in a lot of movies, and he doesn't really want to have anything to do with this child, with Carlitos. He wants to just get into the United States and be legal, and he's all about himself, and he's solo, and he doesn't need this kid around. He wants him to go to the police to turn himself in and go back to Mexico. And so this character, Paco, is somebody who's dynamic, meaning he kind of changes, because in the beginning he is easily disliked, obviously. I mean, who's going to talk to a kid like this, right? And then over time, we see through his actions, not his words. He says one thing with his words, and he seems like he's this mean, gruff guy who's just on his own and only interested in himself. But in his actions, he actually does look out for Carlitos. He does help him in his journey to try to reunite with his mother, and he even helps him to find his father, who he's never met, when they are in Tucson. So getting back to Carlitos, he is in this very relentless pursuit to be with his mother in Los Angeles, And even though this guy, Paco, doesn't want him around, he doesn't care. He's still going to be with him. And he believes so much in his heart and in his whole person that he's going to get a job. He's going to get a place to stay. He's going to find his mom. And so seeing that just hope and that will is, I think, something that sort of motivates or rubs off on Paco a bit. And I loved that dynamic and that relationship in the story between Carlitos and Paco. Another comment by one of these reviewers on the Rotten Tomatoes website said, "Under the Same Moon puts a human face on illegal immigration. More than that, it gives it a human heart." I love this comment because we do see throughout the movie instances where, you know, this is just a whole complex system, immigration in the United States. But these are real people. These are their lives. They are turning their whole lives upside down for something that they truly believe in, and that is a life in the United States, to reside and work in the United States. And I love how we get to see Rosario working in the homes as a house cleaner. We get to see the people who are going to the lady in Mexico trying to make their way into the United States. And then we see, what she calls the Chicanos, people of Mexican descent who were born in the United States, who are the people who actually bring Carlitos into the United States, and how they are trying to pay for college, and the way that they're trying to do it. Illegal also, by the way, even if you are a US citizen. And then we see what chaos it is like at the US-Mexico border. I've crossed into Mexico a number of times, and a lot of cars, a lot of officers. And so I appreciate seeing all of that, but also the human heart and the emotion and the strength of the characters in this story. Okay, so there's this guy, his name's Paul Chambers from CNN Radio, and he wrote a different kind of review saying, "Story of separated mother and child doesn't carry much emotional impact." Totally disagree with that. "Makes you wonder how much mi madre really cares. Turns into a road drama with the kid headed to Los Angeles." Okay, first of all, his suggestion that the mother doesn't really care is completely just delusional. I think it's really detached from what the real experience is of immigrants, especially those who have come to the United States where they are separated from their children. I've represented clients who are separated from their children. It is heart-wrenching. It reminds me so much of service in the military, because it is not I don't care about my child, I'm leaving my child, and I'm doing this for me. It's because they care about their child so much. They love their child. They want a better life for their child, and they believe the decisions they are making is for the benefit of their child or children. And so reading something like that is just clear to me. This person is completely out of touch with those kind of experiences. They're ignorant of those experiences. They don't know that type of sacrifice. And that's really what it is. It is a sacrifice of your time that you will never get back. You don't get those birthdays that you missed back. You don't get those memories you could have made with your child back. And it is a risk, and it is a huge sacrifice that could have really big, wonderful, great benefits, but it doesn't come without the sacrifice, and it definitely impacts everyone involved. So people who think like that, I chalk up their sort of conclusions and assumptions to the fact that they're blessed with connection and family, that they don't endure such situations where the separation is because of other bigger things going on that they simply can't understand. But I wanted to mention some good and a bad review of it. Eugenio Derbez plays the character I was thinking of. And I'm sorry, it was not Paco, it's Enrique. Paco was the guy who likes the mother, Rosario, and is so sweet, and he's so caring, and he's right there, and he's ready to help her. He's ready to get married if it means that, you know, it's going to help Rosario out, and he's super sweet, and I really liked that character. So earlier when I kept saying Paco, Enrique, I was talking about Enrique, played by Eugenio Derbez, who was fantastic, and he added some light humor to the movie. Okay, so I am over 25 minutes on this video now. I think this is one of the longest I've done, but I really, really loved the story. I loved the characters and the authenticity of it. And I was laughing throughout the movie, and towards the end it became really emotional and heartbreaking when you see this child crying for his mother and thinking about her and how she's looking at the same moon. And that's how he explains to Enrique that, you know, his mom had been talking to him and telling him, you know, to remember her. And then when they finally see each other in the end, oh my goodness, I just started crying. That was just very moving and emotional. If you've ever been to any kind of military base where people are returning from deployment and you can see them in the distance, they're getting off the aircraft, or they're getting off the bus, or they're getting off of that battleship, or they're, you know, slowly moving into the harbor on a battleship, and you can see them, but you can't touch them, you can't hug them yet, and they're so close, they're so much within your reach, but you can't yet get to them, and you can see them, and you've missed them because they've been gone for so long. It is extremely emotional time, and so that's what I thought of at the end when I saw it, and I thought it was a very unique and creative way for them to end the movie. I hope that you will watch this if you haven't. If you've seen it before, but it's been a while because the movie came out in like 2007, go watch it again. It's a great movie. I think this is going to be one of my favorites, one of those movies that I want to watch, you know, every year, because it's really a moving, sweet, lovely story while also being pretty authentic and pretty real. Thanks for watching. Have a good time watching it.